Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing today? We good? All right. So we're going to have a discussion today, okay? I'm not here to lecture to you, but I really want to make sure that by the time I leave, you have a deep understanding of why you hear about AI in the media all day, every day. Okay? It's not a mistake. It's not some random thing. It is truly the most transformational technology that I have seen in my 30 years as an innovator. Okay? I am not a traditional PhD tenure track academic, although I have been published in peer-reviewed articles. I am a practitioner, but I span the world of innovation and education. Okay? So, I happen to be teaching at a lot of universities these days. All right, I'm an executive fellow at Harvard. I teach in Harvard Business School, Harvard proper, Brown, Carnegie Mellon, Cornell, Oxford, Cambridge, and NYU Abu Dhabi. Not NYU New York City. Why Abu Dhabi? Because what's happening in the UAE is extraordinary. Okay, they got the memo. Every single citizen in that country has a ChatGPT Pro license. The UAE government is providing funding to send all of its citizens to school so that they get upskilled, so they are not run over when the profound changes that we are seeing in the world happen. Okay? Not all governments are that forward-looking, but it's a joy to be in a country whose government gets it. Okay, same as in Saudi Arabia. Okay? So I'm doing a lot of research with my colleagues at Harvard Business School on AI, and we'll share some of that in a little while. One of the things I think it's important to say is I have worked across every imaginable industry. I've done grand rounds at research hospitals. I've worked with everyone from Stellantis that makes Alfa Romeos to very small companies, to biotech companies, to venture capital funds, to nonprofits, to large insurance companies, and also training staff at Harvard and Babson College. And then the same in the Middle East and in India. And so what that context shows me is there's not an industry that has not benefited from the adoption of AI. Not a single industry. Okay? Now, some industries are way ahead. Right? And this is a quote that I use often. The future is already here, and you can either choose to step into it. And for those of you who have been hesitant, I hope that by the end of my talk, you will join me in the future. Because it's pretty exciting. It's a pretty exciting place, I will tell you. Now, is AI perfect? Of course not. There's never been a perfect technology, ever. Doesn't exist. There's upside and downside to everything. But organizations today are getting the benefit of this in profound ways, okay? And so let's just look at history, okay? I'm not going to go back as far as Gutenberg yet. We're going to do that a little later in the talk because the first half of my talk is to share with you what is happening across the entire world of AI. And then we will pivot to what's happening in the publishing industry to make it as relevant as possible for each of you. So if we study history, and I am an innovation junkie, this is what my field of study for my entire career. Right? We've had 6 waves of innovation. Right? They started in the 1780s in London, England, and this was really the beginning of what was known as the Industrial Revolution. And what's interesting about this graphic is that over the course of the 6 waves, every single one of these waves was catalyzed by some profound invention or innovation, right? There was some technological output that changed the way that we work, that changed the way that society functions. Now, what makes it interesting is that, and I don't have the actual time spans, but what you would see if I had a more detailed chart is each wave, successive wave, is compressed. They become tighter and tighter. And then they really became compressed when we entered into the digital era because we went from physical atoms with inertia to digital bits that move at the speed of light through cable, okay? And so each of these eras is becoming more and more compressed, but we're also starting to see the slope of each curve increasing as well, which is the impact of these innovations, okay? So we have been living in the digital era. You can argue, was it when Mark Andreessen created the Mosaic browser at Netscape? Was it when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone in the Apple store? Right? But we've been living in the digital era for 25 or 30 years. And yet when COVID came, there was a huge number of companies that were completely unprepared to compete in the digital era to their peril, okay? And so I'm going to just share a quick story for the scientists in the room, okay? And I want to introduce you to the octopus and its cousin, the ammonite. And a lot of us probably haven't spent a lot of time thinking about octopi and ammonites, but 66 million years ago, a meteor the size of Manhattan hit the Earth. That must have been one hell of a vibration, okay? And what happened in that moment was massive temperature changes within the ocean, and acid rain started coming out of the sky. And it destroyed the food web, and the ammonite, which was a very rigid species, couldn't handle the change, and it became extinct almost immediately. And yet 66 million years later, I still get to have calamari, okay? Which is a brilliant thing for an Italian guy, okay? And so what's amazing about the octopus, it's a fabulous analogy for an organization. The octopus has 9 brains. That's 9 more than Donald Trump, okay? And maybe 10 more, actually. I think this is in a negative slate, okay? 9 brains. There's a brain in each arm, as well as in the head. And then there's what is called a neural necklace, so that each of these arms know exactly what the other arms are doing in any given period of time. And then it also has the ability to change its DNA depending on the shocks to the system that it is being subjected to, right? And so this is an incredibly agile species. And this is the perfect analogy for the kind of company that I think we all aspire to be leading in this day and age. Because disruption is, without question, more profound today than it's ever been. And so there was a meteor that hit the Earth. Some of you may have recognized it. It was almost exactly 3 years ago to the day that ChatGPT 3.5 came out. Now, a lot of you don't know that there were earlier versions. There was GPT-1, GPT-2, GPT-3. But it was this one that when it was let out into the open, it really had a profound effect on the world. People were having a shock and awe moment, for those of us who were paying attention to it, okay? And so what we do not want is to be that guy. And we've all met that guy or that woman. That transformation is years away. I don't see any need to change, okay? Last words that person will ever speak as the leader of that organization, okay? Now, if you don't pay attention to this with the same level of passion that I do, you might not recognize the insane rate of change. We are seeing the compounding of these capabilities, right? I mean, if you think about compound interest, this is compound interest on steroids. And so I don't often quote Marxists in my talks, but this one seems to be appropriate, okay? And probably more appropriate today than it was when Lenin first uttered this phrase. There are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. Now, I don't know if anybody saw, what were the 2 major announcements that came out this week? Anybody know what the big AI announcements were? There was one that was it just lit up the internet. Google Gemini 3.0 was launched just a couple days ago to great fanfare. And oh my God, the social media just completely blew up for good reason. Google, who started off very slow, has really gotten back in the game, okay? And if you've played with this model at all, it is staggeringly good, okay? And then OpenAI already came out with an update based on something they had just started shipping like 4 weeks ago. And I can go on, but Joe, those are just 2, right? And so what we see is that not that long ago, it would cost $50 to process 1 million tokens, right? And this is the way that people measure the economics of the use of these tools. $50, okay? Today, it costs 5 cents. And this has all happened literally over about a year. That rate of compression of cost has never been experienced in history. Some of you know what Moore's Law is, right? Moore's Law was the guiding principle around the entire semiconductor and computer industry, which was we would see a doubling in capability every 18 months while cost fell in half. Cost did not fall by several orders of magnitude in that period of time. They fell by 50%. And so we've entered an era now of mass intelligence. And so all of these models, these frontier models, have achieved a PhD level of intelligence, okay? Truly PhD level, and then Gemini 3 taking it to an even further threshold. And so, has anybody played with deep research? Who has used OpenAI deep research? Okay. And so who from the publishing industry has used it? Anybody other than my friends from Cactus? Okay, so I'm gonna, yeah, okay, so can you share what your thoughts are on this? I know I haven't asked you, and I'm not, it would make me a terrible lawyer because I have no idea what you're gonna say.
Well, yeah,
but what?
That is gonna be a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I should say, I'm just reading at Wiley. I think the term that publishers see with deep research, to coin a phrase from a colleague,
Yeah.
is it's not very deep, it's very broad.
Okay.
And so for researchers, it's producing a good answer, but produced on kind of Reddit and other tools like that, and not the scholarly corpus.
All right.
So it's a great tool, fantastic.
All right, but let's assume we're out of the scholarly domain for a second, and we're just using it in our daily work lives. How would you characterize this?
Extremely impressive.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right. So, you know, this is actually a quote from a colleague of mine who runs a company called HubSpot, which is a very successful Boston-based tech company with a $50 billion valuation. Right, literally days after it was released, because he was getting early access, it produced an 11,000-word report with data, with citations, with tables, genuinely great insights. And I will tell you, I use this tool every day in my own research. And it's, for me, who's not, again, I'm not a scholar, okay? It's exceptional. They have begun, right, in the last week, we've seen a number of other organizations make similar announcements. But both Google and OpenAI and a range of other companies are now literally renting you a team of research scientists. They happen not to be human research scientists. They happen to be AI agents. But they will rent you an entire research lab of scientists to support your research initiatives, okay? Now, how many people think that's insane? Anybody think that's insane? No, okay? Because this is something that's been now going on for the past year. And we've now seen 4 or 5 new companies just in the last weeks. And by the way, Jeff Bezos just announced after his big wedding in Venice, he's ready to now get back into the game of running a company again. And so he just announced this week he's going to become the CEO of a new company that's in this space exactly, okay? So this is starting to happen. And then a couple years ago, people thought that, you know, this stuff really wasn't going to be very good at writing code. Well, not that long ago, we had our annual International Collegiate Programming Contest. It's the most prestigious university programming contest in the world. And they invite 3,000 universities from all around the globe. And what happened this year was a landmark. OpenAI provided its own what's called Codex. It's a completely autonomous, agentic coding application. There were no humans involved in this competition. And it solved all of these insanely complex problems, all 12 of them, perfectly. Perfectly. No other human team, including, and if you follow a computer program, you know the Russians can code. So the University of St. Petersburg lost. Harvard lost. MIT lost. Beijing, you name it. First time this has ever happened in history, okay? And then people would say, yeah, this stuff's never going to be good at math. Well, you never say never with AI because never doesn't last very long, okay? And so Google and OpenAI both won gold at the International Math Olympiad not all that long ago. Right? This is the Olympics for math geeks. Okay? You don't need a trainer. Okay? You just have to do a lot of problem sets. Okay? So if we're thinking about the capabilities that it has been able to achieve in a short period of time, like we've never seen before, it's important to recognize where we are. Okay? We've come a long way. So there are two different clocks that we need to pay attention to. One is the clock governing the external world that we are living in, and the rate of change of AI that is happening, that is compounding, that is accelerating. And then there is the rate of change within your own respective organizations. And I would venture to guess most of your organizations are not anywhere close to maintaining the pace that is required to keep up with these advances. Okay? So what we often see is after the kind of growth that we've experienced, we start to see a plateauing, an S-curve. But we're not seeing that here. We're seeing a J-curve. It's going straight up, and it's moving faster. There's no signs of it slowing down. All signs indicate that it's only going to continue to accelerate. Okay? And so the question that I ask all of you is, are you minding the gap within your own organizations? Are you aware of what is happening around you and the incredible effects that it could likely have on your respective organizations? Okay? So we used to think that we had a business moat. Maybe we've been in business for 100 years. Maybe we're a brand that has been recognized, right? I'm on the board of directors of a British company, and they said our moat is physics. Well, I just showed you that all of these tools are able to get you better than PhD level responses. So the moat that they've been using to continue to defend their business has gone away. What do you do when your moat goes away? Okay? And so I ask you to think about that. What is the business moat that keeps you as leaders in your field? And do you think it's under threat? And I would venture to guess that for most of you, the answer is it is under threat. Absolutely. Okay? So AI is disrupting every part of your business model. The cost of production, the cost of delivery, how you create value, and then how you capture that value. Okay? Every business model is under assault right now. And so, just in case you didn't think the investors were paying attention, Hemant Taneja is managing director of one of the most successful venture capital firms in the country, although they are evolving to something much more than that. And what he is saying, and he was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal recently at their Tech Live event, maybe a couple of weeks ago online, in Laguna Niguel, California. And what they're basically saying is we're seeing a lot of older, more traditional industries, and they're just not moving very quickly. And so we are now going to accumulate massive pools, tens of billions of dollars of capital, and we're going to go into these industries, and we're going to unleash the power of AI in these industries, and we are going to profoundly transform these industries, right? So there are investors that see, you name manufacturing companies, logistics companies, transportation companies, publishing companies. We're going to unleash this capability, and we're going to make it change. We're going to completely change the economics of these businesses. And then Thomas von Cook, who runs one of the biggest private equity firms out of Sweden, even in established industries, you're going to see a lot of tipping points where old behavior changes really quickly, and if you're on the wrong side of that, it will get very ugly very fast. Okay? And so in the blink of an eye, we see this classic disruption cycle where there's a very high level of overconfidence, and then before we know it, how many people have a BlackBerry in the room? Anybody carrying their BlackBerry with them? I mean, nobody wants to have a BlackBerry moment, right? I mean, they went from 97% market share to 3% market share in less than 3 years, right? That's a tough gig if you're running a company like that. And we can go on. There's a million examples, okay? But this is what happens when organizations say, you know what, we can wait. It's not, we got time to think about this. We're not 3 years into the revolution, right? We're 10 years into the revolution. A lot of this was under the surface of the water. If you think about an iceberg, most of this was happening that you all were not paying attention to because it's not your job to pay attention to. So there are a lot of people that were working on GPT-2 GPT 2.5, GPT 3. Not, they didn't have to wait for 3.5 to come out. They knew what was coming. So I want to shift here and say, right, nothing in life is to be feared. It's only to be understood. And so now, right now, is the time to understand more so we may fear less. So I know that my colleagues at Cactus did a survey. And of course, there were some positive outcomes about we think that there's some benefits, but there were some concerns. So how many of you are using AI in your daily jobs today? Raise your hand if you're using them today. Okay. And what are the things that you like about AI? What do you like about AI? What does it do for you that you couldn't do before?
Makes things more efficient.
Makes things more efficient. Give me an example, if you would, something that makes you more efficient. Anything?
Fast editor.
What's that?
It's a fast editor. That's true.
A fast editor, okay. That's cool. What else? What else are people using for? A lot of hands went up. So other than being a fast editor, yeah?
I'm finding I can learn very quickly things that I know very little about.
Okay. So you can learn. Okay. That's great. And give me an example of something that you learned recently that you were surprised that you could learn so quickly.
Yeah, it was really about astronomy. So
Okay.
I
Okay.
was curious about some astronaut
Okay.
galaxy.
Cool. Okay. Very cool. Yeah, please. And let's get you a microphone, okay? Because I know the recording is. Yeah.
Big for ideation.
Ideation.
I have an idea, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure where to go with it.
I love it.
Throw it in there, let it go crazy.
Yeah.
Comes back with 15 ideas.
Yeah, and then
Unbelievable.
then you ask it to challenge the ideas that you've
Yep.
jointly come up with. Cool. Ideation, beautiful. Okay. Who else? A few more? Yeah.
It's like my personal assistant.
Just a personal assistant.
Anything I need, that's the first place I go now.
Okay, so you have an
All
AI first
competitive
mindset.
analysis. I don't need to go to individual sites to find information. Just go to one spot.
Got it. Okay, so it's really streamlined your need to, for you to do any kind of research. Cool. Any last one? Yeah.
So, in sort of the same thing, use case is have a bunch of notes from a meeting about an RFP.
Yes.
Look for different business opportunities.
Yeah.
Fed it into AI and said, shoot me out an RFP draft. that
Right.
can use notes.
Mm-hmm.
Got a great document to really begin that process. So,
Cool. Thank you. All right. That's great. Yeah, please. Yeah.
We had a 2025 board meeting, and for the past 4 years, we've analyzed the average quarterly growth rate across all the major publishers
Right.
toward the idea that we might be going out for RFP in the next couple of years.
Right.
And that has taken me anywhere from half a day to a day and a half to download and analyze.
Yeah.
It took 11 minutes for that report to be stood up. It took me another 6 hours
Yeah.
to confirm that the information was right.
Yeah, but you got
It took
yeah.
11 minutes and it
And that's great. And I think it's very important to emphasize what you just said, right? Of course, he's not trusting it to be perfect, okay? He's going to go back and this is a human in the loop. He's going to verify, right? No one says you just hand over everything to AI. That's not the message here, right? But if you can interact on ideation and go back and forth and challenge, right? If you can get something quickly so that the real work that you're doing is the critical thinking part, right? This is the human part of it, right? That's powerful, right? And I just want to share an example, right, from, yeah, please.
I
Yeah,
was just
please.
going to say, I used it to set up a whole scenario planning exercise from
Yeah.
the analysis to begin with to the axes that we were going to evaluate to the stories that we needed to use.
Yeah.
And then I got the humans in the room to talk about the implications. It's great.
I love it. Okay. All right. So how many of you are using OpenAI ChatGPT? How many are ChatGPT users? How many are using Google Gemini? Wow. Okay. Anybody using Microsoft's Copilot? All right. So it's a pretty big mix around the room. All right. I just want to share one example. So I was in Saudi Arabia and I got called in by the chief information officer of the largest commercial construction company in Saudi Arabia. This was almost a year ago. It was last December. And a gentleman raised his hand, older gentleman raised his hand. He said, I'm not sure if I should be in this room. This is probably going to be way too technical for me. I said, so here's what I would say. You clearly know how to speak because you just asked me a question. And you have a laptop in front of you, which means you can type. So you're more than technical. And the moment of this guy ran contracts for this company. Now they're building the world's largest airport terminal in Riyadh. It's going to be bigger than the one in Istanbul. You can imagine the kind of contracts you need to build an airport terminal, okay? They took their primary contract. They fed it through, at the time, I think it was ChatGPT 4.0, And within less than a minute, it came up with 100 suggestions of how they could improve that contract. This is a contract that I've been using and refining and using and refining for years. And within a minute, it was like, here's 100. This was when I know I had the group. This was the moment of epiphany that I said, okay, I've got this group now. They understand the power of this stuff. Okay. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you have defined, articulated AI policies within your company? Raise your hands. All right, that's great. How many of you do not? Raise your hands, and there's no shame here, because a lot of companies do not. All right, so the reason I ask that question is what we know is when an organization does not have an AI policy, employees will smuggle AI into work with them. Okay, they know the power of this stuff, right? They want to get their jobs done. They want to get home and be with their kids, or they want to get home and watch whatever sport they want or event they want, right? So if there's no policy in place, you are creating havoc. You are creating a situation where you have employees that are using all kinds of different tools, and they're likely consumer-grade tools, and they don't have the privacy and the security and all of those things that you would want to protect your businesses, okay? So if you don't have an AI policy, you know who can help you write an AI policy? AI. You'd be amazed, right? And you can make it very specific. I am in the scholarly publishing industry, and this is what my organization does. This is what we are looking for. Give me the best 10 policies that are out there today in our industry, and then bring them all together and synthesize them and create the perfect governance policy for my company. You'd be amazed. And you'll get, again, you're not going to trust it completely, but you're certainly going to use it as a starting point. So then what is it that would lead you to not embrace AI at work? Where are the biggest concerns? What would keep you from making this a company-wide, organization-wide initiative? What would lead you to say, you know what, too much risk, whatever? Anybody have any concerns that this is just not something that you can see yourself through right now? Please, okay, yeah.
It's not something for me, but
yeah.
I know the folks I talk to in the industry,
yeah.
the AI community that I help lead.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is to look for
when it comes to hallucinations or errors in the output,
yes,
that the people actually using the AI are picking up on it and checking it. I think that's the biggest fear is people will set it and forget it,
yes,
and not do the critical thinking and the checking part, which is very important.
Okay.
Can I just add on top of that?
Yeah, okay, let's get you the microphone.
So the risk is also that we ourselves make them check less, right? Because we want everyone to go faster, to do more with less.
Mm-hmm.
And if most of the time the AI is right, then we incentivize our employees to do more and do it faster,
mm-hmm.
and don't bother to take the time to check until it bites you.
Yeah, and it will bite you. It's just a matter of when, right? Absolutely. Okay, and we're going to come back to that because that's important. Yeah, please. Microphone.
One of the biggest things we had was the fear of the policy itself that we created. Then we got past that. We put a walled garden in, and then it was like we use it for everything.
Right, because once the policy is in place and it's regarded as policy, it provides a level of clarity to everybody. They know what they can and can't do. They know what tools they can use. They know what data they can put into the system. Absolutely. It makes a huge difference. Okay? So, I'm sorry, tell me your name.
Laura Campbell.
So Laura, so tell me a little bit more. So, obviously we have the ability to create a culture, right, where we can define for our employees what we expect from them. And I realize that we're all moving quick, right? I mean, everything that Akhilesh said about more and more publications and all that, you guys are under immense amount of pressure. So how do you think you balance that in a way that you get all of the good stuff out of AI without the concerns that your employees are maybe either becoming a little bit too trusting, or maybe they're just, they're feeling pressure that they need to get things done quick? How do you do that?
So I don't. That's why I'm here.
Okay,
right?
I got it. I just
Because one
asking.
of the concerns I have is, so my last jobs have been in government.
Yeah.
And in general, the policy there, unfortunately, is that when something goes wrong, the problem falls on the last person who touched it.
Got it.
This is a problem in healthcare as well.
Okay.
Right? You just throw the last person who touched it under the bus.
Yeah.
And that is clearly a very bad policy. That's a bad way to do it.
Yeah.
But it like historically, it's like, well, we define that you were in charge of quality control.
Right.
And we gave you too little time to do quality control, but the quality control failed, so it's still your fault. And it's usually an underling, right?
Got it. Of course. Okay.
So yeah,
All right. All right.
I'm hoping other people have better ideas.
Yeah. No. And we're going to talk about this, right? But I think I cannot emphasize enough how important training is, right? And it's not a one and done training, right? It's not like, okay, my employees got 5 hours and we're good, right? We're good forever, right?
Actually, speaking of training, it's not just the training for your employees, but the machine language tools that you're choosing to use. What were they trained on?
Oh, absolutely. So bias and all that stuff. Yeah, and we're going to get back into all that, all right? So how many of you have trained your employees on the use of these tools, that you have actually invested in training? Okay, all right. And so let me go back. So how many hours of training would you say employees have taken?
We have planned 3 hours.
Okay. And would this be the first time they've ever been trained? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And how do you envision that training? Because obviously people have different levels of fluency and literacy. So how do you train it, and how many people will you train?
There are going to be 25.
All right, so
very entry level, because we have the survey of our entire association found that there's a very wide usage.
yes.
Some people who are incredibly opposed to the use of AI in a way, assuming it's going to take over a job.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah.
I'm not bothered to write something, why
Yeah.
should anyone be bothered to read it?
Yeah.
Versus some people like me who are very considered full adapters.
Right, got it. Yeah. Yeah, and this is classic, right? Every organization has this incredible bell curve distribution, right? I mean, I've gone in to train executive leadership teams where one is a power user and one is logging on to ChatGPT for the first time in their lives. And so you can imagine how challenging it is to train a team of people when their knowledge base goes from 0 to power user, right? But there are ways around that, right? And a lot of times what I'll do is I will get people into cohorts depending on their beginner, their intermediate, or their advanced, so that I'm not boring the hell out of the people that are advanced, et cetera, or intimidating the people that are beginners, right? Other people had their hand up. What else are people doing around training right now? Because let me tell you, the worst thing you can do is just say, here are a bunch of tools, have at them, okay? Go get it, and then not train them. Because what happens in that instance is a lot of people, unfortunately, are not all that growth mindset oriented, and they may not get the best output that they could because they haven't been trained, right? Prompting is not as natural as it could be, right, for people. And you wind up getting output, and people will say, oh, it's not that useful. I'm going to stop using it. Okay, I've seen a lot of that, right? But that's only because people have not invested in training. So it's a very important part of success, right? Again, going back to Curie's quote, right? If the more we understand, the less we're going to fear. So if they understand that we have a policy and we're going to train you and we're going to support you, their fear becomes a lot less palpable. Okay? Yeah.
I think, Professor, to this point on training, I think referencing the point that Suresh also mentioned.
Yeah.
The fail-fast approach is something which is quite critical, right? If you don't try it, you don't even know what the outcome is going to be.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So sitting on the edge and saying that we are going to go whale hunting is not going to happen. So we have to deep dive and get into that space.
Yeah. So, and my friend back here has his microphone request up.
Yeah, this is just an observation that most of the work done in this industry is not done by the people in this room or the people who work for them. It's done by volunteers who are not paid and definitely not trained.
Yes.
So it's a real
nuance. Well, they may be
nuance.
trained. We don't know. I mean, I bet some of them are trained, right?
Not specifically for what the people in this room want them to do. They may be trained by their employers, of course. So it's a big issue.
Got it. So the lack of authority or control over this pool of people is a big issue. Right.
Millions.
Okay.
10 million.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Yeah, please. Keep passing that microphone around. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of them is sitting on the table idle here.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I always tell people whenever I do AI presentations or talks is it's good to know how to prompt.
Yeah.
But you can actually ask the model to help you write a better prompt.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is what I do a lot when I'm stuck, or if I need to get more granular, I say, here's what I want to do, or here's the document I want to investigate further.
Yeah.
Give me a prompt that gets me exactly what I want.
That's great. Absolutely. Yeah.
So you don't have to be a prompt engineer. You just need to know where to start.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it would be great to have some basic grounding, but absolutely, right? It will tell you what to do. Yeah, please.
I was going to say this. I don't know what the agreement will be on this, but it's kind of hilarious to me that the people who are the experts, even if you go to any of our societies or wherever you're going, who's the expert in AI?
Right, sure.
Is he really an expert?
Right.
Or is he just the guy, and I'll just put myself out
there,
there,
go,
the guy who went there and did the most with AI and got the most training?
Yeah.
But are they really an expert? What's an expert in AI? That's my question.
I don't think you, just like you can't define, what we're now calling AGI, right? There's no definition of AGI, right?
Yeah.
The number of people claiming to be experts in AI compared to the people that are experts, and I'll just give you an example. So we all know Accenture and we all know Deloitte. And what I hear from a lot of my friends who are CIOs is that when these big, very expensive systems integration firms come in with their young employees, and they're supposed to do some kind of AI, deployment for them, the client knows more than these young consultants do. And so now what's happening is they're actually getting into a barter agreement where you're going to give us credit because we're actually training your people, right? You come in here pounding your chest like the expert. We've been doing this more than you. We know more than you, right? So I think it's a perfect question. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Yeah, please.
I was just going to say this is a very specific use case, but it's also what you feed the model to help train it.
Yes.
We work a lot with marketing professionals.
Right.
You want your copy to be on brand, you better be feeding it what your brand is.
Yeah.
So learning how to train the
Right.
model is also part of it.
Absolutely, right? If you're gonna be looking to have something sort of create content for you that is on brand with the right tone, then you're gonna have to train it with the right content, absolutely. And you're gonna have to challenge it and refine it and slap it around a little bit, right? Absolutely.
That's the reason why a lot of startups in the area of AI essentially want to offer free POCs because they don't have the data.
Right.
So for them to get the domain expertise to train their models on, pretty much to your point, Professor, they are using your IP to train their models.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you look at organizations that have grown into this area with domain expertise, their AI models in each and every nugget or each and every nuance will be far more impactful because it's homegrown, it's using the domain, it's using the data, and not leveraging something which they don't have.
Yeah. No, that's right. And the search for the right data is now everything, right? It is the last moat, quite frankly. All right, great. This is great. Thank you, guys. So what is the art of the possible? I think we've talked a lot about that, right? And I love this quote from Alvin Toffler. I don't know how many of you know him. He's a futurist. He lives in Boston. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn, right? And over lunch, we were having a very interesting discussion about everything I needed to unlearn as a professor, okay? The way that I assess my students today is profoundly different than what I've done for the last 20 plus years. I mean, I'm back to using blue books again, okay? I never thought I would do that, right? But, with AI, now we're using AI all day, every day in the classroom, but when I'm assessing their ability to achieve the learning outcomes, I am taking away their laptops, their phones, their watches, and I'm going to force them to critically think about what we learned in that semester, right? And it takes a lot of energy to read blue books. I thought I was done with that, okay? But if I'm gonna allow myself to use AI, then I have to recognize how I test people, right? So we all have to unlearn things, right? We have to unlearn the playbooks that had made us successful in the past because they're no longer relevant anymore. Okay, so you're all leaders, and I really appreciated my friend's point that you might not necessarily have as much control over the people doing the work as your traditional C-suite executives. But what I think is important for you to recognize is the role that you all play and the role modeling that you are doing. So this is a Boston Consulting Group study. Only 25% of about 3,000 people, 3,500 people surveyed feel that they are getting leadership support from their executive team. And for those that do seem to believe that they're getting leadership support, a 41 percentage point improvement in people using AI regularly, a 40 percentage point improvement where people are positive about the impact of Gen AI on their job experience, their work experience and enjoyment, and a whopping 47% improvement about Gen AI's impact on their career prospects. Okay? So, we have met the enemy, as Pogo said, and it is us. Okay? And so if we're going to be leaders, then we better be out front, role modeling behavior, talking about the fact that we're not here to take your job away. We're here to make you successful. And we're going to provide you with the right tools to make you successful. We're going to provide you with the right training to be successful. We're going to have an overarching governance policy so that you know exactly what is expected from each of us. Okay? This is the way that we manage AI within our respective enterprises. So now let's talk about your world. Okay? Any questions before I shift into the second part of this presentation? Anybody have any questions on anything I've mentioned? No? So I'm going to just, and please do not be insulted by these cartoons, but I was going to have a little bit of fun, okay? What we don't want to do is we don't want to have status quo bias, okay? And I know, let's be very clear, the publishing industry is not necessarily known as the earliest adopters of innovation. Now I'm trying to be diplomatic here, okay? I'm trying really hard, okay? But let me just say something that I think is really important for you to understand. As an entrepreneur, someone who started 8 technology companies over 25 years, I would avoid like the plague the educational industry, the healthcare industry, the financial services industry, any heavy regulated industry. Because if you thought that you could get enough cash flow before you ran out of venture capital, you'd go out of business, okay? But guess what? These companies in these industries, despite the fact that they're heavily regulated, are some of the earliest adopters of AI. It's a complete, fundamental, turning everything on its head upside down. Okay? So how many people remember this ad? Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you to enjoy it one more time. And feel free to laugh.
The wheel. I don't think so. What does it do? It rolls. Yeah, so does a bagel, okay? A bagel you can eat. One of the worst ideas I've ever heard.
Brother David, behold, the fork. I got 10 forks right here, baby. Am I right? My lord? What is it? A toilet, my lord. A toilet? You expect this cork to do its business inside? We're not animals. We go outside like humans.
It's coffee. It's new.
It's awful.
You don't like it?
I'm all jittery and feel like I got a big job coming on.
Hancock, you sign first. No king! Gentlemen, have you taken leave of your senses? The people shall have the right to vote. Even the stupid ones? Yes. Stupid people vote? Yes.
Edison, can I be honest with you? It stinks. Does your wife know what's going on here?
She knows I go to work.
You're wasting your time, and it's sad. You might as well put the dishes in the shower.
Hey, Captain, what's cooking? We're putting a man on the moon. Are you out of your mind? I can't even get tuna without celery. Nobody's going to the moon, ever.
Why not?
It's too far. It's far. It's really far. It's far.
我々の未来はポータブルミュージックです。
バカかバカかわかるだろうわかるだろうわかるだろう出て行けみんないるのか怖いんだああバッタリがいつも言えるぞバッタリどこバッタリ
Like I was saying, it's FTX.
Oh my God. Anyway, I don't think we have to unpack that too much. Okay? And we don't want to be Larry, do we? Well, Larry's quite a funny guy, but we don't want to be Larry. Okay? And so the last thing that we want to do in this era is to say that we want to keep things precisely the way they are. Okay? So we have the opportunity to accept status quo bias, which is what BC did. okay, or to change. And so a couple of weeks ago, a colleague of mine, I was at a book launch called Epic Disruptions. Does anybody know the work of Scott D. Anthony? Anybody know his work? So he was a protege of the great Clayton Christensen, who was the person who coined the phrase disruptive innovation and who did some of the early pioneering research around disruptive innovation, okay? And so again, the forces of disruption repeatedly rewrite the rules of human possibility. And then what are the chapters that he devoted? Because he had an infinite number of choices. And it turns out that in his world, the printing press was one of the most 11 profound disruptive innovations in history. Okay? And so what's really fascinating to me, right, and I am not an expert on the publishing industry by any means. I would never in any way make a claim that I was. So as I got ready to give this talk, of course, I wanted to go and spend a little bit more time thinking about, learning about your industry, right? And I love what I've learned here, right? The Protestant Reformation would not have happened without the printing press, and the Enlightenment would not happen. And then Ben Franklin, before he was a founding father, he was a publisher. And so this is a man who obviously was able to influence societal opinion, right? And his work very significantly catalyzed the U.S. American Revolution, right? The U.S. doesn't happen without publishing, right? It's extraordinary. But the history of publishing is also the history of technology as well. And so this is a little bit convoluted, and Rachel, this is the one thing I think I had missed the first time, but these things were not in order, so forgive me that they're not in order. I don't know how that happened, but the program sort of convoluted things. But we go from the 1450s to the 1800s, okay? Cheap paper industrializes print. Journals become mass channels. We have all kinds of new technology, and I think some of this is probably not correct, but the message I want you to take away is that over the course of the entire publishing industry's history, technology has been a very critical part of it, okay? And so the 5 levers lens, right? Whether we're talking about the creation of capability through typesetting and latex, and today Gen AI drafting, to production, offsets, XML first, automation through production, distribution, rotary press, web platforms, printing on demand, discovery from indexes to search engines to knowledge graphs and now AI assistants, to verification and memory from peer review and integrity technology, provenance, right? This has always been an industry that has been undergirded by technology. So it's not like AI is the first time we've seen this. Okay? And again, as was said before, I want to go back to the point you raised, right? We've always had a trust challenge, right? From plagiarism with photocopies, link rot on the web, paper mills, and AI-generated text. But the industry has always answered each of these challenges with a new norm. And so we've gone from XML first to AI ready, but the human role only gets more important. And I think that's really important to communicate with your employees as you go through this training process and you start to acculturate them and what this means for them. Okay? So I'm just going to let you read this because you can read better than I can. But I really enjoyed this quote that I wound up finding as I was preparing for this, right? And I think the message is AI is just the next instrument in the orchestra as long as the conductor is still fully human. So I think we are facing a new era for scholarly publishing, and I think Akhilesh really set that up well, so I don't want to spend a lot of time belaboring that, but this is something that explosion of research output and data complexity is something that we're all facing. Workflows are under strain. And the challenge is, how do we turn this into a human-AI collaboration? Okay? So how many people believe that you've already begun to treat AI as your collaborator, something that you look to as a partner, as opposed to a subservient threat to your life, okay? I think that's just such a critical, that attitude is everything, right? That mindset is really everything. So what are the problems that we face? I think I'm probably preaching to the choir here. Volume and velocity, accessibility gaps, operational friction, but where does integrity and trust come in today to your world? Because I've got to believe this is a very huge issue for you, right? So how do you mitigate some of this today? with all of these paper mills. Right? I lived in a world where, as I was building my tech companies, there were industry analyst firms that would be happy to sell you their logo for $50,000 so that you could write whatever it is that you actually wanted to write about your company, to position the company in exactly the right way. Right? But no smart customer would ever not see through that. Right? So they were offering you sort of the perfect testimonial from an industry analyst, but everybody knew what that industry analyst's reputation was. So how do you guys deal with this piece of it in this current era? How are you using AI to deal with this piece of it? Please. Yeah.
I think most people would agree, at least at our association, it's a multifaceted approach. Particularly I can address manipulation of images because we're beta testing with image twin, the use of AI detection when we screen our figures for manipulation. Can I say it's a great tool?
Yeah.
TBD, but it's one additional tool. So, plagiarism check, there is an AI component in iAuthenticate as well. So, there's no single component that we're relying on, rather just a wide set of tools.
All right, so you're triangulating it around it, and you're looking to converge on something that you think is going to work for you long term.
Well, either us or our publishing partner.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Yeah.
So, just to be frank, I think we're relying to an unsustainable degree on our editors and human capital to do this work and make these decisions. In part, we know these solutions are out there. In part, because we can't necessarily afford the solutions, and they're not scalable from a business perspective.
Got it. Okay.
So that's part of our challenge.
Right. And do the editors resist this? Do they feel like this is encroaching on their unique role?
No, I think they feel like it's part of their role.
Okay.
So we don't get a lot of pushback, but I don't know that we get optimal outcomes.
Got it. But you're saying economics is a big issue.
Yes.
It just doesn't scale the way you need to scale.
It's challenging, yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
One way that we're using it at the American Heart Association is working with Cactus. Talking about this issue of scale, we have a problem with meeting abstracts. We get thousands and thousands of these for our meetings.
Yeah.
And we do have volunteer, academic reviewers for those, but they can't catch things at this, persistent problems across the whole corpus of all these abstracts that are being submitted. We're getting a lot of people who are using AI to submit very low quality abstracts, dozens and dozens of these across multiple organizations.
So they're throwing spaghetti against the wall,
basically. And definitely we've working with Cactus, we've been able to use their tools to kind of sort through stuff with a human review down the line, and kind of get a better picture of what's being submitted and kind of weed out some of these problems before we actually publish the abstract.
That's great. And how long have you been using this tool?
2 years, actually.
Okay,
yeah.
That's pretty early. Yeah. And how would you compare the results before? Any metrics that you're using to measure progress?
Well, we're not publishing the crap that we were publishing before.
Got it. Okay, that's clear.
I don't know good metrics. Interesting. Typically, we used it last year. Our meeting, big meeting was just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
The abstracts from the previous year, 2024, they identified a couple problems. Authors who were submitting a lot of multiple submitters.
Yeah.
Some problematic abstracts. So we were able to weed those out. This year, it actually got considerably worse. We had something. What number was it? Was like 800 abstracts where the authors had submitted 20 or more abstracts.
Wow. So AI slop on steroids.
Yeah, basically yeah. And we had one person who was up to 91 submissions.
Wow.
In our
must have been busy weekend for that person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So but the tools actually helped us weed a lot of that out, and so we were a little stricter with what we could.
Very powerful. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, please. Microphone over here, my friend, the yellow sweater.
It's worth noting that publishers have, in the last 2 or 3 years, have created entire departments, sometimes with hundreds and hundreds of people, to deal with this issue, and they're still way, way behind.
Yeah, wow, that's
so
amazing.
It's an uphill battle that I think AI is going to have to help. We do have tools now, but it's still a long way to go.
Okay, and so let me ask you, so you've got hundreds of people working on your team, like they're directly working for the company, and they're on your payroll?
Yeah, not necessarily ours, but other publishers have hundreds of people just on the publishing integrity work.
Okay. And where do you, when will they, and I'm not asking you to project the future, but with everything that we have available to us, right, it just seems so illogical that structure would exist for any period of time, right? It just seems so illogical, right?
I share your opinion.
Yeah.
I think that what we heard was that this is technology, let the technologists take care of it.
Yeah.
So we hired hundreds of technologists who know development work, who are thinking about some sort of funnel.
But see, this is the paradox, right? This is not, just so we're very, this is not a technological revolution, right? This is a human revolution. Yeah, that is being powered by technology, okay? And just, let me just build on that before you go, just give me 1 second. When you talk to, so a friend of mine is the MIT CIO of the Year 2025. And I was moderating a panel at our annual symposium a couple months ago, and her message was very simple. For every dollar we spend on technology, we spend $3 on change management. This is a human transformation challenge, not a technology challenge. Because we all know how to use these tools. This is not machine learning. This is something that we speak naturally or type naturally, right? Please.
So I think one of the biggest problems that we have with research integrity is that most of our systems and structure and processes are built on the assumption that we're working with good faith actors.
Right, interesting.
So we take an enormous amount of the information from authors are based on the idea that why would they lie?
Right.
And I think it's been a shock to our system to realize that so many things are coming into our world where there are bad faith actors.
Got it.
But our basic architecture is still based on a faulty assumption.
Fascinating. Very interesting. So can you give us an example of a complete shock and awe moment of a bad faith action?
Sure. Why would somebody, why would a reviewer review a paper and take that time even though they're not providing any information?
So they're volunteering to be a reviewer, and then you get no output, you get no feedback in return. Yeah. Okay.
So
Got it.
there's lots of things going on.
Fascinating.
Fraudulent behaviors, but they're things that we would not have anticipated when we built the first online submission system.
Fascinating.
More like it would be more like something. We ask somebody, "Do you have patient consent?"
Yes. Sure.
Why would you lie about it?
Yeah, exactly.
But we have traditionally relied on trusting the world.
Wow.
So it's very different for me. It's the change in perspective on our relationship with authors who are submitting.
So fundamental assumptions have been deeply challenged, overturned, basically. Wow. Thank you. That's fascinating. And do other people have that experience as well? Is that a common experience for many of you? Yeah. Wow. Okay. I would have never, ever known that, but I guess in the post-truth world we live in, maybe I shouldn't be that surprised. All right. So I'm going to start to wrap up because I'm about to run out of time, right? But I don't want you to feel in any way that this is an exaggeration, right? This is the world as we live in it. And I will tell you, right, I don't know how many of you own a crystal ball at home. I've been trying to buy a crystal ball on Amazon for a long time. It may be the only thing they don't sell. The substitute for a crystal ball is to spend time in Silicon Valley and see what's going on there. And I realize that that's a luxury that many of you don't have, but how many of you know the case study of Axel Springer? Does anybody know the Axel Springer case study? This was a huge German publishing company that published many of the great, Germanic language newspapers and magazines. And the founder, and we all know beginning in the era of the web, right, in the mid-90s, what was happening to the popular publishing industry. And so the CEO of that organization went out to Silicon Valley, and he immersed himself in Silicon Valley culture. And he made it his own highest priority to bring Silicon Valley clock speed, mindset, culture into Axel Springer. And if you've not paid attention, they are one of the very few companies in the world that come out of the industry that has thrived. They've built a remarkable business engine. They've got a partnership with one of the leading private equity firms in the United States of America, right? Because they willed themselves to do it. And it was because I don't think of Germany necessarily as the most innovative, fast-moving place in the world. And I don't say that as a criticism. It's just not their culture. And yet this individual really willed this organization into a position of innovation leadership that was stunningly impressive. Okay? And so of course we've all seen these economist cover stories and data is the new oil. Okay? And let me just share one study that was done fairly recently by some colleagues of mine at Harvard Business School and then people from Wharton. We've been doing a lot of collaborative work with them. And so this was a field experiment that was done with 776 mid-level managers at Procter & Gamble. Now, Procter & Gamble is a very unique institution in the United States. The people that are in those roles are all very well educated, typically come out of some of the top business schools, and they're very, very well trained, right, and highly professional in what they do. And so they took a control group that could not use AI, and they basically played 2-on-1 basketball, okay? And so you had two humans competing with one human with AI. Okay. And what did we see? The one individual using AI matched the performance of a two-person team without AI. Teams with AI were 3 times more likely to deliver objectively measured top-tier solutions. AI helped dissolve functional silos between commercial and R&D professionals. And then here's again where the moat goes away. A novice using AI could match or outperform a seasoned expert. Okay? So this is what we, I think, all want to be able to leverage today. And what you may or may not be aware of is we've already begun to see what is called the frontier firm. And the frontier firm is a firm where AI agents are now on teams with humans. Okay? How many of you have kids at university today? Or just recently graduated from university, okay? So we all know that the challenging and chilling statistics about entry-level jobs coming out of universities, and they predict this year will be the worst since 2007. What I'm seeing amongst my colleagues is that when they hire a young man or woman coming out of a university, they're not hiring that person. They're hiring that person in the 8 or 10 agents that they have created. They're coming in as a fully fledged hybrid human AI team. Okay? Again, this is not science fiction. This is not Star Trek. It's happening before our eyes. Moderna, the company that created the COVID vaccine, merged its AI, its HR, and its technology department, which is an early signal because they are a poster child for early AI adoption. They believe that in the future, we're going to need to manage these hybrid teams the way we once managed just people. Okay? So all of this is happening. It's happening in real time. It's happening as I sit here today. God knows what's happening while we've spent the last hour and a half together. Okay? But this is where we are. And so the vision is, of course, AI plus human collaboration, and it's been repeated. The Harvard D3 Institute study is one of hundreds I could have referenced. Hundreds. Okay? And this is what we have to tell our employees. AI is a co-pilot. It's not your replacement. Period. Okay? The guiding principle is we use this for augmentation. And that's not to say that we don't automate certain tasks. There are certain tasks we can automate for sure. Okay? And so the machines handle the mechanical part, humans lead the meaningful. They do the deep critical thinking that's going to support, the fact that we can stand behind this with pride. And the goal is faster, more fair, more inclusive publishing ecosystems, right? And that's what I think Cactus is here to help us build. All right? And so there are people in the room. Does anybody in the room want to comment on one of these different case studies? I believe these are all clients of yours. Is that right? So does anybody anybody here from Springer Nature? No? Anybody here from Elsevier? No? Okay. Okay. So probably not. You haven't been Americanized yet, okay? Oh, yeah. An American, 4 hours, I'm an expert, okay? What do you want to know? Exactly. All right. Anyway. Yeah, exactly. Got it. Okay. All right. So listen, here's the bottom line message, right? Is innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity. And I know it's scary as hell. And I know that there are a lot of people that do not like change. But there's an old phrase that I love, right? It's reckless change, or forgive me, let me repeat that. I'm searching for the proper word to start it off, but that if you think that change is reckless, conservatism can actually be more reckless when you're running a business, okay? And I think that's the message I want you to walk away with. And so I'm just going to ask you to imagine a future where you have become collaborators with AI. I hope I've instilled in you some sense of urgency that this is something that needs to happen yesterday for all of you, right? And human-AI collaboration is not the future, it's now. You've got to reinvent the way you create workflows, and you've got some new assumptions that are going to cause you to reinvent workflows differently than maybe you did a year ago, okay? And back to the point that Sid raised, pilot boldly, learn fast, share widely. One of the things that I've seen work really well is something called a promptathon. I don't know if anybody's ever been to a hackathon, but a promptathon is where you get people from across the organization, different functional groups, sitting together and prompting and coming up with better and better prompts and sharing those with your colleagues, and pizza and beer or whatever, and making it fun, right? Making this a shared learning experience. So you can take the novices and you can put them with the experts and you can bring them together, okay? Works really, really well. Okay, so from movable type to machine learning, every leap in publishing has amplified our humanity. So how will you use AI to reinvent your part of the publishing process, okay? So with that, I'm going to yield the floor. I think we're right on time. So thank you all for your engagement. Appreciate it.
So the irony, I guess, of that is that
yes.
For FTX, which is now bankrupt.
Oh, absolutely.
Founders and creators.
Yes, of course.
So how do we navigate the hype around it?
Okay, all right, that's a great question.
On crypto,
Yeah.
probably regretting that we went all in on crypto.
Yeah. So let me be very clear. First of all, for better or worse, right? And I've never put a dime into crypto, so let's be very clear. I am not a fan, and I'm a pretty innovation, risk-tolerant guy. There are certain things where, at least from my point of view, it does never pass the sniff test. But let's back up. A lot of people have done very well with crypto. Right now, it's a speculative asset, but I do think that, for better or worse, with the new presidential administration, the industry has legs now. But let me answer the thrust of your question, right? Is there a lot of hype in this industry? Oh my God, is there hype? But was there hype during the dot-com period? Was there hype during the birth of the PC? You know how many thousands of companies were making PCs before the shakeout happened, right? How many people were making semiconductors before the shakeout happened, right? So it's not like we've lived without hype. But I think what's happened is technology used to be for the province of geeks like me that would hang around MIT. Now technology is mainstream, and AI has become so universally accessible that it has a whole new level of access to the world. And I would say that I would stick with a handful of proven organizations that have a long history, right? To bet on a startup today around AI and to put that into a critical workflow in your organization would be a risk that I would never advocate anybody taking, okay? There's going to be thousands of these venture-backed startups that will go away, just like we saw in the dot-com era. But we did get Amazon out of that. We did get Netflix out of that, right? So I would be highly skeptical of startups. There's obviously Cactus has been around for 23 years, right? This is a unique franchise within the publishing industry. But if we look at the larger AI industry, right, it's a 2 or 3 person race, okay? So I don't know if that answers your question, but I tried. Yeah, please.
Well, I think everybody in this room, when we look at our content, forget about publishing. Look at our content. The value of our content is what I look as the future of us surviving.
Right.
And we're getting bombarded with every AI company, every startup wants our content. How do we protect that content is the question.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, this is, again, the most precious thing that you have. Right. And the question becomes, I would imagine there's a larger strategy, which is, let's go back and look at Reddit, right? For a long time, Reddit got its pocket picked, right? And nobody knew that this was going on. But once the industry woke up, we saw a dramatic shift, right? That this content was valuable, and a lot of these organizations were licensing their content, right? So the question for you becomes, is this a strategic direction that you want to go in, right? Do you want to license your content? And if so, who are the few strategic partners you're going to do that with? And damn, you better trust them. And you better protect the hell out of that licensing agreement, right? But I would imagine that's at least worthy of an exploration.
I mean, we're already at the point where we can't trust them because they've already taken our content.
Okay, well, okay. I got it. All right, well, then obviously that's a challenge, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got to imagine you've got to be open to pretty much anything today, right? Any business model needs to be on the table today. So who are the companies that have taken your content that are the most threatening to you right now?
Well, big AI companies.
Okay.
I mean, every one of them.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't bring that level of specialization around scholarly publishing that you do, right?
No.
No.
But then there's other ones that, I can't name, I'm not
Yeah.
going to.
Yeah, sure.
But there's other ones that want our content.
Yeah.
And then they're going to take that, and what they do with that is a concern.
Right.
If we just give it away.
Yeah.
And they take it and do something bigger than what we can do.
Right. I mean, obviously you would never give it away, and if you were to license it, the terms would have to be incredibly bounded.
That's exactly the point that I was referring to earlier, that most startups are after the data, after your content, to train their own systems.
Yeah,
so when it comes to trusting an organization which is happy to embed their IP into your organization, into your system, so that you are not leaking that information out of your system, that data integrity element is very much critical to the functionality and confidentiality of what you have currently or what you've curated over these years. It's centuries worth of data.
Yeah.
Right? So it is important that it is protected, but it is also harvested for the good use of how your organization can benefit and stay relevant for the next, few decades.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
I think we're at a really interesting inflection point, right? You made the point earlier that the history of publishing is the history of the world, is the history of technology, right? And the value of the content that we have is really incredible. And yet, right, the whole scholarly publishing industry is like what, a $30 billion industry, right? I think that might be like Meta's legal budget for the year.
Yeah. And we know that our friends from NVIDIA are worth $5 trillion, one company, right?
Correct.
$5 trillion.
So their ability to swallow up all of the information that we have with, frankly, very little legal recourse, at least that we can afford, is one that I don't really know how to deal with right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a good solution, but any thoughts?
I mean, all I can say is I think that this issue has become so much more visible, right? I mean, you guys were the ones who were being victimized by it, right? But now we're starting to see even the big frontier language labs, right, stopping to collaborate with their peers, right? So all of a sudden, Salesforce.com is not sharing its data with Glean, and I can go on and on. But I mean, this is, I wish I could give you an enthusiastic answer, but I would be lying to you right now, right? And part of the problem is the courts cannot keep up. Congress cannot keep up, right? So by the time they wake up, right, a lot of this data has already been appropriated from others, right? And I think just like you have to rethink fundamental assumptions that you miscalculated on, understanding the new game, the new rules of the game is, okay, let's assume that this data is under threat. Congress is not going to do anything to help us. The states are not going to do anything to help us. The industry is not going to do anything. What do we do? How do we manage in this chaotic new world order? I think that's the only really logical approach right now. It's not fun, right? Disruption sucks. I don't know any other way to put it. Yeah. Any last questions? Because I know we're running over. No? All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.